everyone! I decided to upcycle these old candle containers and use them to make some vanity containers where I could store some of my cotton pads and cotton balls. There was leftover wax stuck on the bottom of the candle containers that needed to be removed. I was able to remove the wax by melting it. I did this by placing the candle containers inside a pot filled with water on top of my stove. I went ahead and turned the heat to medium-high and allowed the water to boil until the wax fully melted. When doing this, make sure that the water level is high enough to cover completely the label. This will enable the label to warm up and make it very easy to remove. After the wax melted, I needed a place to pour the melted wax, so I put some napkins on top of a bowl. I use a napkin as a filter to catch the melted wax. You can also use a coffee filter and put it inside of a cup to capture the melted wax. I used some oven mitts to remove the containers because the glass was very hot to the touch. And after I removed the containers, I was ready to pour out the melted wax onto the napkin. I poured it out and the napkin absorbed all of the wax so that it wouldn't seep through and damage the plate underneath. There was still some residue left behind inside of the container after pouring the melted wax out. So I went ahead and I used a spoon to scoop out all of the residue onto the napkin until the container were completely empty. I went ahead and rinsed the container with some soap and water. I was able to peel off the label fairly easy on the bottom because it had boiled in the water and it had removed some of that adhesive. These type of candles had a label that was a vinyl plastic material, so I was able to remove it fairly easy by just peeling it off, and it removed all in one piece. And then I just finished rinsing the container. I just rinsed it with soap and water. I also cleaned all of the lids with soap and water. Now these containers were a little bit different. The label were of a paper consistency, so I struggled removing the label off of the container. I started off with some soap and water and a sponge, and I was able to remove a little bit, but I had to use some vegetable oil to help remove the rest of the adhesive. So I poured some vegetable oil and I just rubbed the label until I was able to peel off a lot of the label off of the container. I had to do this a couple times. I had to put some oil and scrub it and then rinse it with water and then put some more oil. So I did this about 4 times until I was able to remove all of the label. And I used a sponge to scrub off some of the label, and that helped a lot, and so did the dish detergent. So you can use any kind of oil for this, olive oil or coconut oil. I just used vegetable oil because it was what I had available and it was the cheaper options for oils. So I went ahead and rubbed it and removed all of the residue from the glue off of the label. And I was able to remove the label within a couple minutes. And then I just rinsed the container one last time with some soap and water and a sponge until it was all cleaned. I tried another method of removing the wax. I tried pouring hot water into the candle container. Now this wasn't as effective as boiling the container inside of the water because the wax didn't completely melt and I had to use a spoon to scrape a lot of the wax. It did soften the wax, but it left a lot of it behind and it was more difficult to remove the wax off of the container. Also, this process was a lot more messier than just boiling it because there was a lot of water that needed to be drained. So it did make a mess in the plate, and also a lot of residue was left behind. After cleaning the containers, I went ahead and I dried the containers and the lids with some paper towels. After drying the containers, I went ahead and grabbed these cute crystal knobs. To the top, these are just knobs that you could use on dressers or cabinets that you could get at a hardware store. So I bought 2 different sizes for my containers. I just used a glue gun to glue the knobs. And as you can see, there's 2 types of knob. One had a flat surface and one had a little concave surface where I could fill it in. I preferred these because the glue went in and when you glued it, it was more seamless, whereas the one with the flat end left a little bit of elevation where the glue was. So I went ahead and I put some hot glue gun on the bottom, and then I just eyeballed it and placed it in the middle. If you would like, you can use a measuring tape and use a marker and mark off the middle, but I just kind of placed it where I saw that the middle was, and I just placed it on the lids, and then I put some pressure down, and I did this with all of the lids, and I allowed it to dry for a couple of minutes before handling the containers. So this is how the containers look when they're done. I used some cotton rounds to fill up one of the smaller containers. And for the second container, I used some cotton swabs. And they fit perfect in these containers. And then finally, in the large container, I went ahead and I filled it up with some cotton balls. And this is the result. I really like how they came out. I think it looks very nice. And you can see what's inside the container, so I know what I am grabbing. They look really cute in the side of my dresser and really complement the decor of my room. Thanks for watching my video, and please subscribe so you can see my future DIY videos.